The dust never settled on Colony 7. Taman had learned that truth during his first week on the mining station 11 years ago. Now 19, he walked through the gray corridors like he owned them, though he owned nothing at all. His boots made hollow sounds on the metal floor. The salvage shift would start in 10 minutes and Taman was never late. Being late meant losing credits. Losing credits meant skipping meals. He had skipped enough meals as a child. The memories of his parents were fading now, like old photographs left in the sun. He remembered his mother's laugh. He remembered his father teaching him to fix broken machines. Then the pirates came and everything turned to fire and screaming. Taman was 8 years old when the colony administrators found him hiding in a supply closet. They gave him a bed, basic food, and put him to work as soon as he turned 12. Nobody cared about orphans on the edge of space. Taman reached the salvage bay and found his crew already suiting up. There were 5 of them today, older workers who moved slowly and complained constantly. They treated Taman like furniture, barely noticing when he spoke. Section 9 today, the crew boss said without looking up. Hull breach exposed some old cargo. Easy job. Easy jobs were never easy. Taman grabbed his suit and checked the oxygen levels twice. He had learned to trust nothing and no one except himself. They worked in silence for 3 hours. The cargo turned out to be mostly worthless scrap metal. Taman's arms ached from cutting through twisted steel. His suit's temperature control was failing again, making him sweat in the enclosed helmet. Then the alarm started screaming. Red lights flooded the corridors. The emergency signal meant only one thing: attack. Taman's heart jumped into his throat. The crew boss was already running toward the escape pods, shouting for everyone to follow. But Taman heard something else. Children crying. The colony had a small school near Section 9, 30 kids, all younger than 10. The teachers were probably panicking, trying to get them to safety. But the escape route from the school passed right through the main corridor, and if the attackers were coming from the docking bays, those children would run straight into them. Taman made a choice. He ran toward the school instead of the escape pods. The crew boss screamed at him to come back. Taman ignored him. His boots pounded against the metal floor. The alarms were so loud he could barely think. Through the windows he saw ships outside, dark and aggressive, firing at the colony's weak shields. He knew these ships. Everyone on the frontier knew them. The Vryn Horde, raiders who took everything and left nothing alive. Taman reached the school and burst through the door. 2 teachers were herding children toward the exit, their faces white with terror. The kids were crying, holding on to each other. "Stop," Taman shouted. "You can't go that way." "The escape pods are," one teacher started, "are through the main corridor. The raiders are coming from the docks. You'll run right into them." The teacher's face went even paler. "Then what do we do?" Taman's mind raced. He knew the colony's layout better than anyone. Years of salvage work had taught him every tunnel, every maintenance shaft, every forgotten passage. "There's a cargo route," he said, "old and narrow, but it connects to the emergency shelters on the lower level. Follow me." He led them through a side door and into the maintenance tunnels. The children whimpered as they crawled through tight spaces. Taman went first, testing each step, making sure the path was safe. The teachers brought up the rear, their breathing harsh with fear. They were halfway to safety when Taman heard footsteps behind them. Heavy footsteps. "Not human. Keep going," he told the teachers. "Don't stop. Don't look back. What about you?" One teacher asked. "I'll buy you time. Go, now." Taman waited until they disappeared around a corner. Then he turned to face whatever was coming. His hands shook. He had no weapons except a plasma cutter used for salvage work. It was designed to cut metal, not fight alien raiders, but it was all he had. The first Vryn appeared around the corner. It was tall and covered in thick armor that looked like insect shells. Its face was hidden behind a black helmet. It carried a weapon that hummed with energy. Taman pressed himself against the wall, hoping the Vryn would pass by. But the creature's helmet turned toward him. It had detected his heat signature. The Vryn raised its weapon. Taman dove to the side as energy bolts tore through the space where he had been standing. The metal walls exploded in sparks. Taman rolled to his feet and fired his plasma cutter. The beam struck the Vryn's shoulder, burning through armor. The creature roared in pain and anger. More Vryn appeared. 3, then 4. Taman ran. He led them away from the children, deeper into the maintenance tunnels. His lungs burned. His legs felt like they were on fire. But he kept running. He reached a dead end, an abandoned cargo bay that hadn't been used in years. Taman turned to face his pursuers. The Vryn entered slowly, knowing they had him trapped. They spoke to each other in clicking, hissing sounds. Taman raised his plasma cutter. His hand steadied. If he was going to die, he would die fighting, just like his parents. Then the wall exploded. Metal tore apart like paper. A massive shape burst through the hole, moving faster than anything that size should move. Taman caught a glimpse of obsidian-black skin, 4 powerful arms, and glowing marks that pulsed like fire. The creature was fighting the Vryn. No, not fighting. Destroying them. It moved like death itself. One arm blocked a Vryn weapon. Another arm struck with a blade that cut through armor like butter. A third arm grabbed a Vryn warrior and threw it against the wall with crushing force. The fourth arm held a weapon that fired bolts of blue energy. In 30 seconds, all 4 Vryn were dead. Taman stood frozen, his plasma cutter still raised. The massive creature turned to look at him. It was even bigger up close, nearly 8 feet tall, with skin that looked like polished black stone. 4 arms hung at its sides, each one thick with muscle. Glowing red marks covered its chest and face in patterns that seemed to pulse with its heartbeat. The creature spoke. Its voice was deep and rumbling, but Taman understood the words through his suit's translator. "Why do you stand here, small one? The escape pods are in the other direction." Taman's mouth was dry. "I was protecting children." The creature tilted its head. "You led the enemy away from the young ones." "Yes." "You were ready to die." "Yes." The creature studied him for a long moment. Then it did something Taman didn't expect. It pressed one of its massive hands against its chest in what looked like a salute. "I am Corinth of the Drexian warrior clans. I hunt the Vryn who dishonored me in battle. I did not expect to find courage in such a small creature." "I'm human," Taman said, though his voice shook. "My name is Taman." More explosions echoed through the station. Corinth moved to the hole in the wall and looked out. "More Vryn ships come. Your colony will fall. Then I need to help more people escape." Corinth looked back at him. "You would return to the battle." "People need help." For a moment, the giant alien said nothing. Then he made a sound that might have been approval. "You have the heart of a warrior, Taman of the humans. Come, we will save your people together, and then we will speak of honor and blood bonds." Taman didn't understand what that meant, but he followed the massive warrior back into the chaos. He didn't know that his life had just changed forever. He didn't know that he had just become kin to the galaxy's most fearsome warrior race. All he knew was that people needed saving, and he would not run away. The warship was called Iron Storm, and it was nothing like the vessels Taman had seen before. Human ships were built for efficiency and function. This ship was built for war. Every surface was covered in dark metal that seemed to absorb light. Weapons bristled from every angle. The corridors were wide enough for Drexians to walk 4 abreast, which made Taman feel even smaller than usual. Corinth had brought him here after the battle at Colony 7. The Vryn had retreated when the Drexian warrior ship appeared, saving what remained of the colony. Taman had said goodbye to no one. He had nothing to leave behind except memories of dust and loneliness. Now he stood in the training hall, looking at weapons he didn't know how to use and armor he couldn't lift. "You are weak," Corinth said. "It wasn't an insult, just a statement of fact. A Drexian child of 5 years has more strength than you." "I know," Taman said, "but you have courage. And you have something else." Corinth tapped his own head with one massive finger. "You think, you plan, you adapt. These are also weapons." For 6 weeks, Taman trained. Every morning he woke before the ship's artificial dawn. He ran through corridors while Drexian warriors laughed at his slow pace. He lifted weights that barely moved. He practiced with blades designed for hands twice the size of his own. He failed constantly. Worse than the physical training was the mockery. Other Drexians came to watch the soft-skin struggle. They made jokes in their rumbling language. Some thought it was entertaining. Others thought it was insulting to their warrior traditions. One warrior named Vorax was the loudest critic. He was massive even by Drexian standards, with scars covering all 4 arms. His glowing marks were dark red, almost black, which meant he had killed many enemies in combat. "You shame yourself, Corinth," Vorax said one day while watching Taman fail to complete a climbing exercise. "Taking this creature as bloodkin is an insult to our ancestors." Corinth's eyes glowed brighter. Do you challenge my judgment? I question your wisdom. The human cannot fight. He cannot survive our trials. He will die, and your honor will die with him. Taman heard every word. His hands gripped the climbing rope until they bled. He wanted to defend himself, but he had no defense. Everything Vorak said was true. That night, Taman sat alone in his quarters, staring at his bruised hands. He thought about leaving, asking Corinth to drop him at the next human station. Going back to a life of salvage work and survival, the door opened. A woman walked in, human like him, wearing armor that mixed human and alien design. She was older, maybe 35, with short black hair and scars on her face. I'm Hyejin, she said. Corinth hired me to help train you. Taman looked up. You're human. Used to be a soldier. Left Earth after the border wars. Now I work as a mercenary. She sat down across from him. I heard you're struggling. I can't do it. I'm not strong enough. No, you're not. You'll never be as strong as a Drexian. Hyejin leaned forward. But you don't need to be. You're human. We don't win fights with strength. We win with our brains. She spent the next hour teaching him tactics, how to use leverage instead of muscle, how to find weak points in armor, how to turn an enemy's strength against them, how to think 3 steps ahead. Drexians respect strength, Hyejin said, but they respect cleverness too. Show them you can win with your mind. Training changed after that. Taman stopped trying to match Drexian's strength. Instead, he focused on speed, strategy, and surprise. During sparring sessions, he used the environment. He set traps. He attacked from unexpected angles. He still lost most fights, but he lost differently. 3 months after arriving on the Iron Storm, Corinth announced it was time for Taman's first trial. The trial of red sand was a Drexian tradition. Every young warrior had to face a dangerous predator alone and survive. It proved they were ready for real combat. The trial took place on a desert moon. The predator was called a Ravager, a creature with 6 legs, armored hide, and teeth like knives. It was fast, aggressive, and had killed inexperienced warriors before. Taman stood in the red sand, feeling the heat through his suit. The Ravager was released from a cage on the far side of the arena. It spotted him immediately and charged. Taman ran. Not away from the creature, but toward a cluster of rocks he had noticed earlier. The Ravager followed, its claws tearing through the sand. It was much faster than him. Taman reached the rocks and dove between them. The Ravager crashed into the stone, too large to follow. It roared in frustration and circled around, looking for another angle of attack. Taman had prepared for this. During the walk to the arena, he had used his plasma cutter to weaken several rocks, making them unstable. Now he climbed to the top of the formation and waited. The Ravager found a gap between the rocks and squeezed through. As it entered, Taman fired his cutter at the weakened stones above. They collapsed, trapping the creature's body. The Ravager thrashed and screamed, but it couldn't escape. Taman climbed down and approached carefully. The creature's head was still free, snapping at him with deadly jaws. He stayed out of range and fired his cutter at the Ravager's eyes, blinding it. Then he struck at the weak point under its jaw, where the armor was thinnest. It took several strikes, but the creature finally stopped moving. Taman collapsed in the sand, shaking. He had won, but he felt no pride. Only exhaustion and relief. When he returned to the watching Drexians, their reactions were mixed. Some nodded in approval. Others looked disgusted. You use tricks, Vorak said. Where is the honor in that? A true warrior faces his enemy directly. Before Taman could respond, Corinth stepped forward. His voice was calm but carried authority. A warrior uses all weapons available to him. The human used his mind, his knowledge of terrain, and his tools. He survived against a superior predator. That is the purpose of the trial. You defend weakness, Vorak said. I defend different strengths. Corinth placed one massive hand on Taman's shoulder. This human will never match your physical power, Vorax. But he thinks in ways you cannot. He sees solutions you would never consider. That makes him dangerous to our enemies. The argument continued, but Taman stopped listening. He looked at Corinth and saw something he hadn't seen since his father died. Pride. Not in what Taman was, but in what he had accomplished. That night, Corinth invited Taman to his private quarters. The room was sparse, decorated only with weapons and battle trophies. On one wall hung a piece of cloth covered in faded symbols. That belonged to my son, Corinth said. He died 20 years ago in battle against the Vryn. He was brave, reckless. He charged into danger to save his brothers in arms. The massive warrior's voice grew quiet. He was very much like you. Taman didn't know what to say. I'm sorry. Do not be sorry. His death brought honor to our clan. Corinth turned to face him. When I saw you at the colony leading the enemy away from children, knowing you would die, I saw my son again. I saw the spirit of a true warrior. That is why I named you Bloodkin, not because you are strong, but because your heart is strong. Something warm grew in Taman's chest. I never had a father. Not really. Mine died when I was young. Then we are both orphans who found each other. Corinth pressed his hand to his chest in the Drexian salute. You are my kin now, Taman. My blood, my honor is your honor. Your victories are my victories, and I will train you until you are worthy of the name warrior. Taman returned the salute, his small hand pressed against his own chest. I'll make you proud. You already have. Over the following months, training continued. Heejin taught Taman advanced human combat tactics. Corinth taught him Drexian honor codes and warrior philosophy. Slowly, grudgingly, other Drexians began to accept his presence on the ship, all except Vorax, who watched with dark eyes and darker intentions. But Taman was no longer the scared orphan from Colony 7. He was learning to be something new. Something the galaxy had never seen before. A human raised by warriors. A bridge between two worlds. His journey had only just begun. The station called Unity 7 was supposed to be neutral ground. It floated in empty space between territories, hosting diplomatic meetings for species that would normally be at war. Today, representatives from 20 different alien races gathered to discuss the growing Vryn threat. Taman had never seen so many different species in one place. Tall insect-like beings walked beside short, furry creatures. Snake-like aliens slithered through corridors built for legs. The air was filled with translated voices speaking a dozen languages. He walked beside Corinth, wearing armor that Heejin had helped him design. It mixed human tactical gear with Drexian defensive plates. He looked small next to his adopted father, but he stood straight and kept his head high. Other aliens stared at him, some with curiosity, some with contempt. A human walking with Drexians was unusual enough to draw attention. Remember, Corinth said quietly, you represent both your birth people and your adopted clan today. Carry yourself with honor. I will. They entered the conference chamber. The room was enormous, with sections designed for different species' needs. Water tanks for aquatic beings, high-temperature zones for creatures that breathed methane, standard atmosphere sections for species like humans and Drexians. Taman spotted the human delegation across the room. A man in a formal suit noticed him and stared. The man approached slowly. I'm Jiwan, he said in Korean, seeming surprised that Taman understood. I'm a diplomat with the Earth Coalition. I didn't expect to see a human here with the Drexians. I'm Taman, Corinth's bloodkin. Jiwan's eyes widened. Bloodkin? That's extraordinary. We had heard rumors, but... He paused. Will you sit with the human delegation? Taman glanced at Corinth, who nodded slightly. I'll sit with my clan. Something flickered across Jiwan's face. Disappointment, maybe. Or judgment. Of course. Perhaps we can speak later. The conference began badly and got worse. The Vryn horde had attacked 17 colonies in the past month. They showed no pattern, no clear goals except destruction and plunder. Different species argued about how to respond. The Sether, snake-like beings with scales that changed color, proposed a defensive strategy. We should fortify our core worlds and abandon the frontier colonies. Let the Vryn take the empty spaces. Eventually, they will have nothing left to raid. A human representative stood up. Many of those frontier colonies are human settlements. You're asking us to abandon our people. We ask you to be practical. The Sether representative hissed. Humans are not warriors. Your species lacks the physical strength to fight the Vryn. Better to retreat and survive than fight and die. Murmurs of agreement came from several delegations. Taman felt his face burn with anger and shame. He wanted to stand up and shout, but Corinth's hand on his shoulder kept him seated. Patience, Corinth whispered. Words spoken in anger are forgotten. Words spoken with wisdom are remembered. But the comments continued. A massive crawl warrior, covered in thick scales and standing 7 feet tall, pointed at Taman. The Drexians bring a human child to a war council. This shows how little they take this threat seriously. Humans are weak. They hide behind technology because they cannot fight with honor. Corinth started to rise, but Taman spoke first. I accept your challenge. The room went silent. The crawl warrior laughed, a deep rumbling sound. What did you say, little creature? You called me weak. I challenge you to prove it. Taemin's heart was racing, but he kept his voice steady. Single combat. Right here. Corinth gripped Taemin's shoulder harder. This is not necessary. Yes, it is, Taemin said quietly. If I don't fight, they'll keep seeing humans as weak. The crawl warrior smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Very well. I will be gentle, little human. They cleared a space in the center of the chamber. No weapons were allowed, only hand-to-hand combat. Taemin removed his armor's heavy plates to move faster. The crawl warrior didn't bother. He was so confident he didn't even take a fighting stance. Taemin lost in under a minute. The crawl warrior was too strong, too fast, too experienced. Taemin tried using speed and tactics, but in an open space with no weapons or terrain to use, he had no advantages. The crawl grabbed him, lifted him off the ground, and slammed him down hard enough to knock the air from his lungs. Do you yield? The crawl asked. Taemin could barely breathe. Yes. The crawl dropped him and walked away. Laughter echoed through the chamber, not just from the crawl delegation, but from others as well. Even some of the human diplomats looked away in embarrassment. Taemin climbed to his feet, his body screaming with pain. Corinth helped him back to their seats. The massive warrior said nothing, but his glowing marks had dimmed with what might have been disappointment. The conference continued, but Taemin stopped listening. He had tried to defend humanity and only proved their point. He was weak. Humans were weak. Nothing he did would change that. Then the alarm started. Red lights flooded the station. A voice announced in multiple languages, Vryn attack. All delegates evacuate to designated safe zones. Panic erupted. Delegates ran in every direction. The warrior species grabbed their weapons and headed for the docking bays to defend their ships. The weaker species fled toward the shelter zones. Taemin ran with Corinth toward the hangar, but something made him stop. Through a viewport, he saw the lower decks of the station. Civilians who worked on Unity 7 were trapped down there. Maintenance workers, cooks, cleaners. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands. All the species that the warriors never thought about. The Vryn would reach them first. Corinth, Taemin said. The civilians in the lower decks. The warriors will defend the station. No. The warriors are protecting the delegates and the ships. Nobody's going for the civilians. Corinth looked through the viewport. His marks flickered. You are right. But we are only two. We cannot save them all. Then we find others who will help. Taemin turned and ran. He found Hee-Jin first. She was already gearing up, having the same thought. The service corridors, she said. We can reach the lower decks faster than the main routes. They gathered others. Not warriors, but soldiers and guards and anyone willing to fight for people instead of glory. A Drexian female named Dahya joined them, angry that her clan had left civilians to die. A young human engineer named Minjae brought cutting tools to break through locked doors. 20 people in total. Against a Vryn raiding force. Taemin led them through the service corridors, using his salvage experience to navigate the station's hidden passages. They reached the lower decks just as the Vryn were breaking through. The fight was chaos. The corridors were narrow, which helped. The Vryn couldn't use their numbers advantage. Taemin and his group fought in pairs, using crossfire and tactical positioning instead of brute force. Minjae used his engineering knowledge to rig power conduits as improvised explosives. Hee-Jin set up kill zones with overlapping fields of fire. Taemin coordinated the defense, directing people to where they were needed most. They saved corridor after corridor of civilians. Workers fled past them toward the shelter zones while Taemin's group held the line. It wasn't glorious or honorable by warrior standards. It was desperate and brutal and exhausting, but it worked. When Corinth and the other warriors finally fought their way to the lower decks, they found Taemin and his group surrounded by grateful civilians of a dozen species. The Vryn had been pushed back and not a single civilian had died. The crawl warrior who had defeated Taemin earlier stared at the scene. How did you do this with so few fighters? Taemin was too tired to be diplomatic. We didn't fight for glory. We fought for them. He gestured to the civilians. That's what humans do. That's what you think makes us weak. Corinth stepped forward. His voice carried through the corridor. My son is right. You call humans weak because they lack physical strength. But look at what they accomplished. They used their minds, their tactics, their tools. They saved hundreds of lives while the warriors fought for honor and glory. He placed his hand on Taemin's shoulder. This is what humans are. They fight not for themselves, but for those who cannot fight. They protect the weak and the helpless. They think of others before themselves. His marks glowed bright red. If that is weakness, then we warriors are the weak ones. Silence filled the corridor. Then slowly, one of the rescued civilians started clapping. Then another. And another? Soon the entire corridor was filled with applause and grateful voices. The crawl warrior approached Taman. This time he bowed his head. I was wrong about you. And about your people. You have shown me a different kind of strength. Taman nodded, too tired to say more. Later, after the Vryn had been driven off and the station secured, Shiwen found Taman again. What you did today will be remembered, the diplomat said. The entire Confederation saw humans stand and fight. Not with the greatest strength or the best weapons, but with courage and intelligence. You've changed how they see us. I didn't do it to change minds, Taman said. I did it because people needed help. I know. That's why it mattered. As Taman returned to the Iron Storm with Corinth, he realized something had changed. He was no longer trying to prove he could be like the other warriors. He was learning to be something different, something uniquely human, and maybe that was enough. Drex Prime was a world of redstone and endless sky. The Drexian homeworld looked like it had been carved by war itself. Mountains rose like jagged teeth. Canyons cut deep into the earth. Everything was sharp edges and hard surfaces, as if the planet rejected anything soft. Taman stood at the window of the landing shuttle, watching the surface grow closer. His stomach twisted with nervousness. Corinth had told him this journey was necessary, but he hadn't explained why until 3 days ago. The War Council demands to see you, Corinth had said. They question my right to name a human as bloodkin. We must go to Drex Prime and face their judgment. Now the shuttle touched down on a landing platform carved from red stone. As Taman stepped out, the gravity hit him like a weight. Drex Prime was heavier than Earth or any colony he had visited. Every step felt like walking through water. Corinth noticed his struggle. The gravity is 1.4 times your homeworld. You will adapt. Or collapse, Taman muttered, but he kept walking. The Drexian capital was built into the side of a massive cliff. Buildings of dark metal and red stone climbed the rock face like a vertical city. Drexian warriors walked the streets, all of them larger and stronger than any human. They stared at Taman with open curiosity or obvious disgust. A human approached them near the market district. He was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and tired eyes. His clothes were simple work garments. Be careful here, young one, the man said in Korean. I'm Sunwoo. I've lived on Drex Prime for 15 years. Most of that time as a slave. A slave? Taman asked. Captured during a border raid. The Drexians eventually freed me when Earth pressured them to release prisoners. But I stayed. Had nowhere else to go. Sunwoo looked at Corinth, then back to Taman. If you're truly his bloodkin, you've gained something precious. But you've also made enemies. The Drexians don't like their traditions questioned. I didn't ask for this, I know. But you have it now. Watch your back, especially around Vorax. The name made Taman's shoulders tense. Vorax had traveled to Drex Prime separately, arriving 2 days earlier. Corinth said he was building support among the traditional clans, trying to challenge the bloodkin bond. That evening, Taman was summoned before the War Council. The council chamber was enormous, carved from living rock. 12 Drexian elders sat on raised platforms, their glowing marks faded with age but their eyes still sharp. Vorax stood before the council, his forearms crossed. He looked even more intimidating on his homeworld, surrounded by supporters. Honored council, Vorax began. I challenge Corinth's claim of bloodkin. He is named a human, a creature barely stronger than a child as his adopted warrior. This insults our traditions. This weakens our clans. I demand the bond be broken, one of the elders spoke. Her voice was ancient and carried absolute authority. Corinth, you have heard the challenge. How do you answer? Corinth stepped forward. I answer that bloodkin is not given for strength alone. It is given for spirit, for courage, for the heart of a warrior. Taman has proven all these things. He has proven nothing, Vorax said. He uses tricks and tools. He hides behind tactics. Show me one moment where he fought with true warrior spirit. He faced a ravager alone and survived, by hiding behind rocks and traps. Where is the honor? The council murmured among themselves. Taman could see they were divided. Some looked at him with interest, others with clear disapproval. The elder spoke again. There is a way to settle this. Ancient law provides for kin trial. The adopted must prove themselves worthy by surviving 3 days in the Crimson Wastes while being hunted. If they survive, the bond is confirmed. If they fail, both the adopted and the adopter face exile. Taemon's blood went cold. Corinth's marks dimmed. Honored elder, Corinth said, kin trial has not been called in 200 years. It is a death sentence for any but the strongest warriors. Then perhaps you should have chosen your bloodkin more carefully. The elder's eyes fixed on Taemon. Human, do you accept the kin trial? Every instinct screamed at Taemon to refuse. The Crimson Wastes were legendary among the Drexians. A desert of red sand and deadly predators where warriors went to test themselves. Being hunted there for 3 days would be impossible even for a trained Drexian, but if he refused, Corinth would be dishonored. Everything his adopted father had done for him would be destroyed. I accept, Taemon said. Vorax smiled. I will choose his hunters. 3 of my finest warriors. Agreed, the elder said. The trial begins at dawn. That night, Corinth helped Taemon prepare. They couldn't bring much. The trial rules allowed only basic survival gear. No weapons except a single blade and a limited water supply. You don't have to do this, Corinth said quietly. I can bear exile if it means you live. No, Taemon said. You gave me a home when I had nothing. You made me part of your family. I won't let you lose everything because of me. Then listen carefully. Corinth pulled out a map of the Crimson Wastes. The terrain is your only advantage. There are canyons here, caves here, underground springs here. Use them. Never stay in one place. Keep moving. The hunters will expect you to hide. Instead, you must hunt them. Hunt them? I can't fight 3 Drexian warriors. Not with strength. But you can make them afraid. You can make them uncertain. Fear is a weapon, Taemon. Use it. Dawn came too quickly. Taemon was taken to the edge of the Crimson Wastes in a transport. The 3 hunters were already there, checking their weapons. They were all veterans, chosen by Vorax for their skill and cruelty. The trial master explained the rules. The human has 3 days to survive. The hunters may use any non-lethal methods to capture or kill. If the human lives until the 3rd sunset, he passes. If he dies or is captured, he fails. Taemon was given a 10-minute head start. Then the hunters would be released. He ran. The red sand pulled at his feet. The sun beat down like a hammer. Every breath felt like fire in his lungs. But Taemon kept moving, heading toward the canyon system Corinth had shown him. He reached the first canyon and paused to think. The hunters would track his footprints in the sand. He couldn't avoid leaving a trail. But he could use it. Taemon walked along the canyon floor, then carefully climbed the wall and moved along a rocky ledge. He covered his tracks on the ledge with sand. To anyone following his footprints, it would look like he had simply vanished into the canyon. He spent the first day moving from hiding spot to hiding spot, staying ahead of his pursuers. At night, he heard them calling to each other in the distance. They were spreading out, trying to cover more ground. On the second day, Taemon changed tactics. He found where one hunter was sleeping and stole his water supply. Not to drink it, but to pour it onto the sand, leaving a trail leading to a dead-end canyon. When the hunter followed, Taemon triggered a small rock slide he had prepared, trapping the warrior temporarily. One hunter delayed. 2 to go, but he was running out of time and energy. The gravity was exhausting him. His water was nearly gone. He needed to find the underground spring Corinth had mentioned. That's when he met Daye. She was sitting near a cave entrance, sharpening a blade. The female Drexian warrior who had fought beside him at Unity 7. She looked up as he approached. You're one of the hunters? Taemon asked, ready to run. No, I'm here because I was outcast. Daye's marks flickered with anger. I refused a combat marriage. My clan called me dishonored and sent me to the wastes as punishment. I'm sorry. Don't be. I chose freedom over tradition. She studied him. You're the human everyone talks about. Vorax's warriors are hunting you. Yes. Vorax is a coward. He challenged you to this trial knowing you couldn't win. Daye stood up. I don't help humans normally, but I respect what you did at Unity 7. And I hate Vorax, so I'll help you survive. Together they found the spring and refilled their water. Daye knew the wastes better than Taemon's map. She showed him hidden paths and told him where the hunters were likely to search. You can't just survive, she said. You need to prove yourself. That means facing at least one hunter directly. I'll die if I fight them. Not if you choose the battlefield. On the third day, Taman set his trap. He led one hunter to a narrow canyon where the walls pressed close. The hunter was confident, thinking he had finally cornered his prey. Taman used the environment. He threw sand in the hunter's eyes, used his smaller size to dodge in the tight space, struck at weak points in the armor with his blade. It wasn't honorable combat. It was survival. But after 20 minutes of brutal fighting, the hunter yielded. Taman had won. But his victory was short-lived. As he emerged from the canyon, he found Vorax waiting for him. The massive warrior held weapons that weren't allowed by trial rules. "You've done well, little human," Vorax said, "but I cannot let you succeed. I entered the wastes myself to ensure you die here. The council will think it was an accident." Taman backed away. He was exhausted, injured, and out of options. Vorax was fresh and armed. "This is against the trial rules," Taman said. "Who will tell them? The outcast female hiding in her cave? She has no honor to be believed." Vorax attacked. Taman dodged desperately. He tried every trick he knew, but Vorax was too skilled, too strong, too experienced. A massive fist caught Taman in the chest and sent him flying into the rocks. He couldn't breathe. Ribs were broken. Vorax approached slowly, savoring the moment. Then Dahye stepped from behind a rock formation. The invasion fleet appeared on every scanner and telescope across human space. 300 Vryn warships moving in perfect formation toward Earth and its sister colonies. It was the largest military force anyone had seen in 50 years. Humanity's response was chaos. The Earth Defense Fleet scrambled to form defensive lines. Colonies called for evacuation ships. Governments argued about strategy, while people panicked in the streets. Taman watched the news feeds from the Iron Storm's bridge. His homeworld was about to be destroyed, and he was too far away to help. "We must go to Earth," he said to Corinth. "The War Council has not authorized Drexian involvement in human conflicts. We are officially neutral." "Then I'll go alone." Corinth's marks glowed bright. "You are my bloodkin. Where you go, I go. If the Council does not like it, they can challenge me." He turned to the crew. "Any warrior who wishes to leave may do so now. I will hold no dishonor against you. But I sail for Earth with or without you." Not a single Drexian left the bridge. More than that, other Drexian ships began joining them. Warriors who had heard of Taman's trial in the Crimson Wastes. Clans who respected Corinth's honor. Even Dahye brought a small vessel with a crew of outcasts who wanted to prove themselves. By the time the Iron Storm reached Earth's outer defenses, 20 Drexian warships followed in formation. Admiral Seogen, commander of the Earth Defense Fleet, opened communication. His face appeared on the view screen, showing a man in his 60s with gray hair and sharp eyes. "This is Admiral Seogen of the Earth Coalition. Unidentified Drexian vessels, state your intentions." "This is Corinth, warrior clan leader. We come to honor a blood bond with a human of Earth. We offer our strength in your defense." Seogen's expression flickered between confusion and hope. "Why would Drexians help humans?" Taman stepped forward. "Because one of your people is kin to our warriors. Because we fight for those who cannot fight themselves. Because it's the right thing to do." "Who are you?" "My name is Taman. I was born on a colony in human space. I am bloodkin to Corinth of the Drexian clans, and I'm here to help save my birth world." Seogen stared for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "We need all the help we can get. Welcome to the battle, Taman." The first priority was evacuation. The Vryn would strike the outer colonies first, then move toward Earth. Millions of civilians needed to be moved to safer locations. Taman proposed a plan that combined human and Drexian strengths. Human ships would handle long-range transport. Drexian warriors would protect evacuation sites from Vryn raiders. Human tactical coordination would manage fleet movements. Drexian combat prowess would handle direct confrontations. Admiral Seogen listened to the plan, then looked at his officers. "It could work, but we've never coordinated with alien forces before. How do we even communicate effectively?" "Through me," Taman said. "I know both cultures. I can translate not just language but strategy and tactics." The plan was approved. Taman became the liaison between human and Drexian forces. It was exhausting work. Human officers wanted detailed tactical plans and clear command structures. Drexian warriors wanted honor challenges and glory in combat. Taman had to bridge both worlds, translating ideas and intentions while keeping both sides focused on the goal. Hyejin joined him, leading human special forces teams. Minji, the engineer from Unity 7, coordinated ship modifications to improve weapon compatibility. Jiwan, the diplomat, helped smooth political tensions when they arose. The Vryn struck the outer colonies hard. But this time humans weren't alone. Drexian warriors held landing zones while civilians evacuated. Human ships provided covering fire and tactical support. The coordination wasn't perfect, but it worked. Other alien species took notice. If the fearsome Drexians were willing to fight for humans, maybe humanity wasn't as weak as they thought. The Kraul sent a battle group. The Sether offered supply ships. Even species that had never helped humans before contributed resources. But the main Vryn fleet kept coming, heading straight for Earth. The final battle began in Earth's orbit. The Vryn warlord led the assault personally, commanding a massive flagship that dwarfed anything in the human fleet. His strategy was simple: overwhelming force. He didn't care about tactics or casualties. He just wanted to crush human resistance. Admiral Seojin's strategy was more complex. Human ships would use hit-and-run tactics, targeting the Vryn supply lines. Drexian warships would engage the main fleet in direct combat. Special forces teams would board disabled Vryn vessels and sabotage them from inside. The space battle raged for hours. Ships exploded. Thousands died on both sides. The Vryn were winning through sheer numbers. Then Corinth issued a challenge over open communication. Vryn warlord, face me in single combat. Warrior to warrior. If I win, you withdraw. If you win, we surrender. The warlord's response was mocking laughter. Why would I accept? I am winning. Because you are a coward, Corinth said calmly. You hide behind your ships and your numbers. You have no honor, no courage. You are not a warrior. You are a scavenger feeding on the weak. The insult worked. The warlord's pride couldn't ignore such a public challenge. He agreed to single combat on a disabled space station between the fleets. Taman watched from the Iron Storm as Corinth prepared for battle. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. This is the warrior way. Corinth placed one massive hand on Taman's shoulder. If I fall, you will lead. You are ready. I'm not ready to lose you. You will never lose me. I am your bloodfather now. That bond does not break with death. Corinth's marks glowed bright. I am proud of you, my son. You have become a bridge between worlds. You have shown both humans and Drexians that strength comes in many forms. Taman watched Corinth leave for the station. The single combat was broadcast across all ships, all species watching to see the outcome. The fight was brutal. The Vryn warlord was massive, armed with advanced weapons and brutal tactics. Corinth fought with honor and skill, his forearms moving in deadly patterns. For 20 minutes they seemed evenly matched. Then the warlord struck a critical blow, cutting deep into Corinth's side. The Drexian warrior fell to one knee, his marks dimming. The warlord raised his weapon for the killing strike. Taman couldn't watch his father die. He grabbed a weapon and prepared to intervene. Honor be damned. But Daya stopped him. Look, on the screen Corinth was rising. Blood covered his armor, but his marks blazed brighter than ever. He moved with impossible speed, his warrior spirit refusing to surrender. In a series of strikes too fast to follow, he disarmed the warlord, shattered his armor, and forced him to the ground. Yield, Corinth commanded. Never. Then die without honor. Corinth struck the final blow. The Vryn fleet lost cohesion. Without their warlord, the different raiding groups began arguing over who should command. Some ships retreated. Others fought amongst themselves. The unified invasion force collapsed into chaos. The combined human and Drexian forces pressed the advantage. Within hours, the Vryn fleet was broken and fleeing. Earth was saved. Corinth was brought back to the Iron Storm, his wounds severe but not fatal. Drexian medical technology would heal him, but it would take time. Taman sat by his bedside. You could have died, but I did not. And now Earth is safe. Your birth people are safe. Corinth's voice was weak but content. I have fulfilled my duty to my bloodkin. Over the following weeks, the political landscape changed. Humanity was officially recognized as a warrior species by the Galactic Confederation. The Earth Coalition was given a seat on the War Council. Other species began seeking alliances and trade agreements with humans. But more importantly, the battle had proven something. Humans could fight, not with overwhelming strength, but with intelligence, adaptability, and courage. And when they fought alongside allies who respected them, they were formidable. Taemin was offered many positions. Admiral Seojin wanted him as a military advisor. The Earth Coalition offered him a diplomatic post. The Drexian War Council invited him to represent human interests on Drex Prime. He accepted all of them, creating a new position, Kin Ambassador. He would serve as a bridge between humanity and the warrior clans, helping both sides understand each other. Hyejin became his second in command, training a new generation of human warriors who understood both tactical thinking and honor codes. Minji led engineering teams that combined human technology with alien innovations. Jiwon helped negotiate treaties and alliances. Daye returned to Drex Prime with honor restored, her combat in Earth's defense earning respect from even the traditional clans. She began advocating for other outcasts, showing that different paths could still lead to honor. 6 months after the battle, Taemin stood on Earth for the first time in over a year. He visited the memorial for those who died in the invasion. Thousands of names carved in stone representing every species that fought together. Corinth stood beside him, fully healed. Do you regret your choice? You could have stayed on Earth, remained human, lived a simpler life. No, Taemin said. I'm not just human anymore. And I'm not just Drexian. I'm both. I'm a bridge. He looked at his adopted father. You gave me a family when I had none. You taught me that strength comes in many forms. You showed me that honor means protecting others, not just winning glory. You taught me as well, Corinth said. You showed me that warriors can think as well as fight.